Intrepid's been sitting here without me doing much to it for a few days now. I'm planning to deliver it next week, so I just thought I'd better get the things finished off. There are a lot of little things I have to do. One of the debates was whether or not to convert the boat to 12 volt or 6 volt. It was kind of 50-50. Part of the problem with this boat was there were a lot of 12 volt bulbs in here. It had a 12 volt bilge pump, 6 volt battery. The bilge pump kind of works, but not that great. So anyway, what I've decided to do after a big debate is put the 6 volt system back in and find some proper 6 volt bulbs. I've found some 6 volt bulbs. I think 6 volt is getting really hard to find these days, so I'm going to put these in the lights. Found a new stern light. This is a modern reproduction, but it'll work okay, but it'll be 12 volt. I'll have to change the bulb in that. The light wires here, I've made new varnished wires for the lights. They still have to be hooked up with a switch, some of the wiring, the coil, and I think I have found a 6 volt bilge pump actually, so I'm going to pick that up this afternoon and install that in the boat so it'll be working properly. There was a pan under the carburetor here. It's just a little bit big. I think I'm going to see if we can find a smaller one to put in there. If not, that one will probably work. As far as the light wires go, I've got the old ones here. It's usually the case when you varnish a dippy. I mean, you can see these wires here. They were varnished into the boat, so they didn't come out that gracefully, but they're tucked in behind the ribs. So usually when I varnish a dippy, I count on replacing the wires. But the other thing is the exhaust deflector has to go on, the name. So I'm just going to get all that done, and hopefully I'm going to put the battery in and see if I can get the engine to fire this afternoon, and then get it loaded on the trailer between now and next week. This is one of the 6 volt bulbs. It's a new old stock, number 82. This is the brighter of the two. I think this one is 6 candle power as opposed to the other ones, which are 3. Usually when I put a light bulb in a boat, the first thing I do is I clean the contacts. These are a little corroded. I also use this stuff called dielectric grease, and just put a bit of that on the end. I find that helps. It's pretty common with boats, the terminals and the bulbs to get corroded over the winter, so this kind of slows that down and helps out a bit. I've got the ignition coil out of Intrepid here. I've got this little setup I made for testing these coils. What I have here is an adjustable power supply. And I'm going to set this to 6 volts since the boat is running on 6 volt. I've got it wired up. The top terminal here is the timer contact. Bottom one here is the one that goes to the spark. And the bottom one here is the positive. What I do is I just turn on the power. Check the spark. Nice blue spark. So this coil is working quite well. The voltage is the amp draw is a little bit high on here, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to adjust the tension of the vibrator spring here. By reducing the tension, it reduces the amperage draw. That's usually done with a little hammer. If you want to increase it, you tap down on the back of the vibrator spring. If it's too high, as it is in this case, I'll just put a little screwdriver under here and relieve the tension on the vibrator just by putting a screwdriver here at the very end and easing off the spring. Okay, this is taking the tension off of the spring here a little bit, just by a little pull on that. Okay, I've just pried up on the vibrator spring a little bit here. And I see now on my amp gauge. It's drawing 1.5 amps, which is about where it wants to be. It's still a good healthy spark. It's just a little less wear and tear on the points. Just wiring up the dash now. They've got the coil in. A lot of this wiring looks good. The thing I do like is all of the terminals have been soldered. A lot of times these days people just use those crimp-on blue connectors. They're not the best. They work great for a couple of years, but then eventually they start failing. There are also a lot of people who don't know how to crimp them, and most of them come apart. Sometimes you get people just crimping them with vice grips. This one wire which goes to the solenoid, this will be a live carrying unfused 12 volt. These boats don't have fuses usually, but you can see here where something's happened and the insulation's worn off. So I'm going to change this wire. The rest of these I think are probably okay. These are the light wires. I just have to route to the switch and hook those up. I used to get this guy Dean to come over and say, Dean, I need a bow rope spliced in a dippy. And he'd be over, and before I could even see what he was doing, he would have it done. And I'd say, well, what do I owe you, Dean? And he'd say, like, $5. Anyway, Dean's not available anymore, so I guess I'm going to have to figure out how to do this. I've done a couple, but it's been a while. And I always have to look at the drawings and figure out which one goes where. I do know that you want to tape the ends of the splice, or the ends of the 3 strands. Makes it easier to feed them. So I'm just going to do that and then figure out why I want to do the splice. Seems to me the hardest part of this whole thing is knowing which one to start with. So I'm going to try getting the first strand through. And then the next one goes over the one beside it, under here. Once I get it started, it's fairly easy. It's just guessing which one to start with. I think that's the one there. Just getting ready to put some gas in Intrepid here. The mixture I use in all of the two-stroke engines, like the St. Lawrence, is 30-to-1. The best way I find to do this is I have a 15-liter gas can, which used to be easy to find. They're hard to find now. So 15 liters of gas and a half liter of two-stroke oil. And as far as putting it in the boat goes, I don't like to get any gas on the varnish, so I use one of these jiggle siphons. It's sell them at Canadian Tire, and I just make sure the can is higher than the tank. It's got a little marble in here, and you just get the jiggle it to get the siphon going. No more sucking and a mouthful of gasoline. And you put some gas in, and I'm just going to put a bit in to begin to make sure I don't have any leaks anywhere, and then I'll be ready to see if it's going to start up. Got the gas valve turned on at the tank here. See, I've got clean gas in the sediment bowl. Going back to the dashboard here, I have the gas on. Just to make sure there wasn't an airlock, I have opened the drain on the carburetor, which is here. This is one of those pet peeves I have. Is it must have been an anal retentive engineer. 50% of the gas valves, to me that's intuitive, it looks like it should be open. when the handle is going that way. In this case, it's probably a Chrysler valve because they were the ones that were backwards. I guess they thought it looked cooler that way. But anyway, in this case, turning it this way is open. And turn it the other way is closed. So I did have to put a little wire in there to, I think there's some junk in the bottom of that valve. I'm going to have to clean that out. But I do have gas at the carburetor now. One thing I think is a good practice on most gravets is here there's on most gravets it's pretty easy. You can do this in the dock, just reach around and turn the gas off. There's that little valve there. That way, because this is gravity feed, any little leak, it's just going to leak out into the boat. These original gas shutoff valves aren't the best. I mean they work a bit, but they always leak and drip onto the varnish. The other thing is sometimes they leak and it'll flood the carburetor, and then you have a hard time getting the boat started. The trick is when you get into the habit of turning the gas off, you also have to get into the habit of turning the gas on when you go out, because you'll make it about 50 yards, then the boat will die and you won't remember why it won't run. Anyway, I'm just trying to get the coil to buzz. I'm in the position right now. This coil was working fine on my little test setup. I've got it wired the way it should be. Got the positive coming here. I've got the negative from the timer. It's not buzzing. I've also tried just going directly from the battery onto that. But so I've isolated the problem with the coil. I've just got to take the coil back out and find out what's going on with it. So I've been fiddling around with the coil. I think I've got it so it's working now. Not sure exactly what I did. I cleaned the points. Anyway, I've also found a 6-volt bilge pump. So now the boat is truly 6-volt. It had some 12-volt stuff and 6-volt. There is a bit of a debate about that. I know some people with these, they run the batteries on, or they run 12-volt batteries in these boats, and they work okay. The only difference being the starter is pretty violent on 12 volts. One thing about the starter on these gravets, and I've seen a few people fix them, is there's at the bottom there, I've got a piece of green tape on there. That's an interlock. So that's hooked up to the solenoid, and what it does is it prevents the starter from being able to be engaged when the timing is advanced. What happens if the timing is advanced and it's not disabled, and you try and push it over, the boat can kick back, it will grab the bendix, and this is one of the very few St. Lawrence starters I've seen where this nose of the starter here has not been smashed off. Usually what happens is if it kicks back, the bendix will not disengage and it will grab the end of the starter here and break this casting. So anyway, that's important to make sure that works. You see here, the button doesn't work. So anybody who's watching this and wants to call me at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night and say the boat won't start, just make sure you're fully retarded before you try it. I'm going to turn on the ignition here. I've had some gas running through it. I've had it going to the carburetor. So anyway, I'm just going to see if I can get it to fire. I'm not going to run it that long, just want to see if it's going to bark. Wow, that was almost scary. Okay, so I guess I'll carry on now that I'm confident that everything's kind of hooked up okay. Got to put the name on it and finish the whipping on the my eye splice here. I think it's come out pretty good. I've just got to finish it off there. And I think there were a few missing screws in the hatch here. I'll put the hatch on now that I know where that is, and I'm also going to have to look at some pictures and see exactly where the battery was. I'm not happy with it just kind of bobbing around like that.